Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can hear the sound of my voice. David Hasselhoff is running on the beach in slow motion. What an asshole! I'll never forget that sight because I haven't been able to open my eyes since. God bless you all. Don't use drugs. Jane Lynch. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can hear the sound of my voice. This microphone is covered by the thick layer of pubic hairs that shot from between Jane's teeth. During each commercial break, the producers wipe away the pelt of saliva-coated pubes that accumulate upon the mic. And each time Jane returns to the stage, she once again sprays a carpet of short, curly hairs all over the microphone and the front row of the nauseated audience members. So forgive me if my voice is, shall we say, muffled. Carrie Fisher. Thank you for visiting us from the past. When Comedy Central looked at this dais, they said we just don't have enough washed-up, repugnant, drug-addicted, menopausal has-beens. Get me Carrie Fisher. Tonight, we honor a monster in the entertainment industries. And like most monsters, she goes by one name, and that name is Rosella. Rosella! She's been described as being covered with a thick layer of scaly gray skin, emitting a strong, disgusting odor of taco grease and ass cheese. Her sharp yellow teeth can take a man's arm off in one bite if you are foolish enough to try and feed the beast her mountain of pork cracklings and one Slim Fast candy bar. Rosella! Stomping through Hollywood for decades, breathing fire from her hairy snout, burning bridge after bridge, her glowing red eyes striking terror in the heart of anyone unfortunate enough to look in her hideous face. Her gnarled cow-like hooves, crushing and destroying everything in her path, stopping only to feed every 10 minutes, and make one sitcom decades ago. Her rolls of fat, swaying and crashing like a Japanese moonami. Rosella! Or as she's known in Tokyo, Rosella! Tonight, it's our chance to Rosella forever. And don't forget about the tail. Powerful enough to sweep an entire ox into her throbbing colon. People always forget about the tail. They say, let's get Rosella. I say, but what about the tail? They never remember the tail. Those people have paid the ultimate price. And if all else fails, remember, good people, blame it on the Jews. And now for some jokes. A drunken farmer stumbles upstairs into his bedroom, waking his wife, Roseanne. She sits up and sees her husband holding a sheep under his arm. The farmer yells, "This is the pig I've been fucking." Roseanne says, "You idiot! That's not a pig, it's a sheep." The farmer yells, "Shut the fuck up! I was talking to the sheep!" Thank you, good night! Seth McFarlane! Come on, everyone, take it easy on Seth. It's gotta be hard for him to do a roast, especially because the Simpsons haven't done it yet. If only the Simpsons would wipe its ass in front of Seth MacFarlane, he could learn to do it too. But sadly, Seth MacFarlane's bulky ass is caked in layers of unwiped excrement and shame because the Simpsons haven't done it yet. Lisa Lampanelli. I'm told Lisa had a little bit of trouble choosing what to wear this evening. She couldn't decide between the honey glaze or pineapple slices. Lisa, I do have one question. Where are all the black guys you claim to be having sex with? Do you really think that in this day and age, there's a single black guy who would be caught dead inside anyone who's the size of a slave ship? Actually, Lisa has an important role in African American history. It turns out the last black man to pick cotton was yanking out her tampon. Here's a joke. Pam Anderson is walking on a beach. She stumbles upon a magic lamp. She rubs the lamp, a genie pops out. And the genie says, "I'm here to grant you one wish." Pam says, "I want you to make VIP the hit show it should have been." The genie says, "Even with all my power, I can't do that. Can I grant you a different wish?" So Pam says, "Okay, can you make my vagina tight again?" And the genie says, "Let me take another look at VIP." David Hasselhoff walks into a bar every morning and then he stays there till it closes. You know, I've always always heard that David Hasselhoff has sold millions in Germany. But like a lot of stories out of Germany, those numbers are probably inflated, if not a complete hoax.
Oh, God.
David Hasselhoff is running on the beach in slow motion. He stumbles upon a magic lamp. He rubs the lamp, a genie pops out and says, "I'm here to grant you one wish." David says, "Can you make Baywatch Nights the hit show it should have been?" The genie says, "I've seen Baywatch Nights, and even with all my power, I can't make that show any good. You'll have to pick a different wish." So David thinks and says, "Can you make Pamela Anderson's vagina tight again?" The genie says, "No, 1,000 times, no! There's nothing that could be done about Pamela Anderson's." And then David Hasselhoff says, "Okay, can you make me a great singer?" So the genie thinks and then goes, "Alakazam, you're a great singer." Well, David Hasselhoff immediately embarks on a singing tour, and the genie laughs his ass off. He goes, "Oh my God, look at that Hasselhoff out there, thinking he can sing. What an asshole!" The genie says no greater joke has ever been played on a dumber target. They should call him Assholehoff. What a mean-spirited prank that genie played on that asshole that day. Good night. Keep it going for Swamp Thing. How lucky we are that Swamp Thing would come shambling out of the swamp, put on a dress, smear on some makeup, and host this show tonight. Swamp Thing! Isn't he hilarious? You know, there's been a lot of speculation tonight about Joan Rivers' vagina. How old is it? How dry is it? How many men died during its construction? Well, good people, I have had sex with Joan Rivers, and I can tell you from experience that her much maligned vagina is in fact a glorious thing of unparalleled beauty. It was early in my career I walked into the green room at Catch a Rising Star. Who do I see? The great Joan Rivers. At this point in my life, I'd already had sexual congress with dozens of Joan Rivers impersonators. And most were total gentlemen, like Mr. Mario Cantone. But Joan was an animal. She quickly disrobed. Her ashy, yellow, veiny skin was cold and smooth to the touch, like a dead Komodo dragon. Which made my young comics custard cannon rock hard. She spread her legs and I was immediately blinded by a flurry of bats. When the bats had cleared, I saw it. The fabled Joan Rivers vagina. It was magnificent. A gleaming pink flower glistening with morning dew. It filled the room with sunshine and rainbows. A unicorn looked out of it, winking as if to beckon me inside. Take me, Joan hissed. Fill me with your seed so I may live another century. She climbed atop 2 cases of rolling rock and began thrusting her heavenly loins onto my young comet's goo bazooka. I shouted, "Take it all, mein Bubby." Then she exploded, sending a hot rush of love slime sloshing to the floor where it burned a hole into the sewer below. Spent, I fell backward, tumbling into the furiously masturbating Tarm Arnold, only to watch the great Joan Rivers slither away into the open drain pipe. I'll never forget that sight, because I haven't been able to open my eyes since. Anyway, here's an old one. Brad Garrett walks into a bathroom. He sees a leprechaun taking a piss. He grabs the leprechaun and says, "I've caught you. Now you have to grant me a wish. I want a hit sitcom on Fox." And the little fellow says, "For that, you'll have to let me screw you in the ass." Next thing you know, he's banging away at Brad Garrett's gritty bunghole. And Brad says, "I can't believe I'm letting a leprechaun me in the ass." Then Mario Cantone says, "I can't believe you thought I was a leprechaun." Good night.
Well, thank you. As you can see, I'll be speaking with the help of my signer this evening. Marley, I can't do this anymore. She's an Oscar-winning actress, and I can't do this. I'm out of here. See you later.
But can anyone else speak for me? Can you talk to me?
I
Hello?
will be of assistance. I will be happy to sign for the great Marley Matlin. The Hammerstein Ballroom. Speaking of ballroom, Mr. Trump, how are those Spanx holding up? As a developer, Donald Trump has done so much damage to the New York skyline, instead of calling him the Donald, they should call him the 20th hijacker.
Too soon!
Donald always says money can't buy happiness, but it can buy the best Eastern European whores New York City has to offer. Donald has told many a tale of vivacious walkers of the night and their mystical extra hole. They come from a faraway land to suck the blood and ill-gotten bank accounts from wealthy but stupid billionaires. Tell us, oh great Trump, where are these women of who you speak, who possess the coveted fourth hole? For we shall not rest until we have all experienced the pleasure of the four-hole Eastern European whores that are currently doing blow in your dressing room. Did I get that right?
Dennis Leary loves animals. He absolutely adores his Irish wolfhound, who wanted to be here tonight, but he double booked. And when, a dog double books, that's like 14 human double bookings. Please welcome Dennis's Irish Wolfhound, Clancy.
Hi, I'm one of Dennis's wolfhounds. I'm on my way to the veterinarian's office. You see, I had a chance to watch Dennis perform, but I thought I'd have a lot more fun having my balls cut off. You know, I've been Dennis's dog for 12 years. He loves me because I'm Irish, and I love Dennis because he smells like dog ass. You know, Dennis used to paper train me by using his movie scripts. That way I had a chance to shit on them before the critics did. You know, when I look up at Dennis, I see Willem Dafoe without the talent. I see an ugly Bryan Adams. I see Sting with AIDS. You know, if you want to enjoy a Dennis Leary comedy album, do what I do every morning. Get out your copy and take a gigantic dump on it. As Dennis's pet, I get to see a side of him that most of you never do. Dennis, the devoted father. Dennis, the family man. And, of course, Dennis, the Jew hater. Well, Dennis, I'm going off to have my balls cut off. But don't worry about it. You can still lick my asshole.
You know, Jeff, a lot of your friends wanted to be here but couldn't make it. Fortunately, we were able to send a video crew down to a very special friend, someone who is very close to our guest of honor. Please welcome Jeff Foxworthy's cow.
I'm the most important cow Jeff Foxworthy has. Bill Engvall's cow has to suck my I got a pig for a drummer because they're one of the smartest mammals. Just below the dolphin and just above Larry the Cable Guy. Jeff is an original thinker. For instance, most people use their hands to milk a cow. Not Jeff. He uses his mouth so that his hands are free to play with my ass. Come on! I've got E. coli cells on my tits that are funnier than this guy. Have you seen Jeff's act? My is funnier, darker, and better constructed. Here's a piece of I think I can get a development deal for at the WB.